What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We're here with some more NFL DFS picks and lineup advice for tonight's single game showdown slate on DraftKings and FanDuel. It's week 9, Thursday Night Football, Houston Texans, and the New York Jets. Welcome. I'm Brian Jester, co founder here at Occupy Fantasy, single game $1 million winner. In this video, we will analyze the injuries that impact tonight's slate. There are a couple. We will talk about low risk lineup construction tips and core plays, and high risk strategies, tips, picks, and ideas for the largest GPPs on both DraftKings and FanDuel. Let's not waste any time. Let's jump into it. However, before we do, if you hear some banging in the background, they're doing construction next door. So I apologize. You might have to deal with it for like 10 or 12 minutes. I have to deal with it for like 8 or 10 hours. So we will get through this together. All right, injuries. We will start with the visiting Houston Texans. And obviously, the biggest injury is Stephon Diggs, placed on injured reserve this week, torn ACL. They are already down Nico Collins, who has the hamstring injury. He is still on injured reserve. So now it is Tank Dell, wide receiver 1 season. If you drafted him in best ball, this is probably best case scenario you could have asked for, especially given his start so far this year. So, how is the wide receiver room going to shake out for Houston now that Diggs and Collins both are on injured reserve? So, while Collins has been out, it's been Xavier Hutchinson who has been his direct backup, ran 28 routes last week, and he is just $4,000 on DraftKings for some unknown reason. Now, when Stephon Diggs left last week, and again, this could change because in-game injuries don't always necessarily correlate to how the team will respond after they have a week of practice. But what happened last week, and shout out to PFF's Pro Football Focus's usage report, Robert Woods took Stephon Diggs' position in 2 wide receiver sets. John Mechie started playing in 3 wide receiver sets over Robert Woods. And that makes a lot of sense, right? Robert Woods, known for his blocking, especially for his time in LA. John Mechie, kind of the dynamic pass catcher of the group. Either way, Woods is $3,000. John Mechie's $2,800. DraftKings, once again, just does not care for some reason to price these guys up. I mean, I truly don't get what the downside is. Diggs was known to be hurt, and whether or not he was going to be in for this game, I think he was already announced that he was out for this game once they released pricing. But what's the downside in making Hutchinson 5 or 6K, making Woods and Mechie 4 or 5K, more competitive pricing? I think there's a greater risk in making them 30 or 40% than making them 1% if they're overpriced. So I don't know. That's just me. I'd love to hear what you guys think about the pricing. But either way, now we have easy clicks in Hutchinson. And it looks like, based on industry projections, that John Mechie will be a lot more popular than Robert Woods. So Woods can be your pivot in high-risk contests. If that continues to shake out that way, make sure you check out our projected ownership on OccupyFantasy.com and the model and the builder later today. And also, Dameon Pierce is out. He's been taking a couple snaps per game as the backup running back. Let's find him on DraftKings. He also just $2,400. They called up J.J. Taylor from the practice squad. He will be the breather early down running back if Joe Mixon needs a rest. Dario Ogunbowale will also pick up some extra snaps as well. So just keep that in mind as you're building for any non-Mixon lineups. Now, on the Jets side, they're still missing the same defensive starters they were missing last week, which isn't great, obviously. Inside linebacker, signal caller, C.J. Mosley, and also both of their starting safeties. So not great. Still have their lockdown corners, but missing 2 starting safeties, not great either. Alan Lazard, who was out last week and seemingly caught 3 touchdowns per showdown slate so far this year, he is out once again. In his absence last week, Mike Williams, despite Aaron Rodgers' distrust and distaste for Mike Williams so far this year, had no choice. They ran Mike Williams out there for 22 routes last week. He is just $3,600. Once again, just making guys sub 4K despite running 20-plus routes all the time. Don't get it. And then Xavier Gipson, who Aaron Rodgers was calling for more earlier in the season. He did run only 6 routes last week. Maybe he gets a little more work, but $1,200, a couple routes. The other injury that is a little under the radar, Greg Zuerlein, their kicker, was placed on injured reserve. He is out, obviously. They signed 2 kickers, Spencer Schrader and Riley Patterson. Why? I don't know. But they put both these guys on their practice squad, and they will elevate one of them by 4 p.m. Eastern today. So as of right now, we don't know who's going to kick. But at 4 p.m., once they elevate, we will know who's going to kick for them. Now, if you've been watching these videos, whether it's all year or previous years, we have the perfect, uncertain, unknown kicker situation that will automatically lower their ownership, right? People won't know, should I play Schrader? Should I play Patterson? Is Zuerlein actually out? I don't know Schrader or Patterson. I'm just not going to click them. I'll click Kymie Fairbairn, who's a little more expensive. Where is he? So Fairbairn at 5,200, Schrader 48, Patterson 48. they'll just click Fairbairn or just not click this at all. We'll get extremely low ownership on whoever the Jets kicker is tonight. So make sure you lock in for that. And FanDuel has not added them to the slate yet. I'm hoping, generally they do add these guys sometimes. So let's see where they price guys, because that could impact our lineup construction and low own plays on FanDuel as well. But again, as of 10 a.m. Eastern, they have not added them. Let's monitor that too throughout the day. So already found a great lever spot. We love low own, unknown, ambiguous kicker situations. It's really not ambiguous. It won't be. But for the field, it is. So looking to play one of Strader or Patterson heavily tonight. All right, let's talk about low-risk contests, 50-50s, double-ups, head-to-heads. Just have to beat half the field to double your money. Fortunately, it is made a little bit easier on DraftKings with the mispricings. We like to get in both quarterbacks, both running backs when possible to lock up all of the scoring. There are two routes you can go this week, or this slate. So you play both Mixon, Hall, Stroud, Aaron Rodgers. 20-50 left per player. Like, technically, you could make this work. Cade Stover will be a little bit of a popular punt at $1,600. He's been running some routes as the tight end 2 now, and with all the receivers out, maybe he gets a little more run as well. Could see him as a popular punt, but this just doesn't really give you anything. What you could do, you could swap Aaron Rodgers for Joe Mixon at the captain spot, and I'll show you what this does. And let's put Stover back in. And now we can play Robert Woods or John Mechie. So that's an interesting approach. I think some people will do this. The other approach is taking away C.J. Stroud. And this is model approved, by the way. Stroud, not much rushing upside, missing all of his pass catchers against a tough passing defense. You could take Stroud out. Let's put Mixon back in at the captain. Whoops. Let's try actually putting him in the captain spot. There we go. Aaron Rodgers in the flex. And what people are doing, the field industry projections, playing either Adams or Wilson, if it allows you to get an extra player. So if we played Wilson, this we could get Stover and Mechie. So that makes a lot of sense. So I think that's the other way you can go. Now, in FanDuel, obviously, you cannot fit all 4 of those guys. And the preferred approach over here is also fading C.J. Stroud. When you have a guy who's more expensive in a tougher matchup and doesn't run, really, he's the easier fade of the 2 quarterbacks between Stroud and Rodgers. So we play Mixon, Hall, Rodgers. 8K left per player. We can play any of the wide receivers from Houston, the tight end Dalton Schultz. We can play Mike Williams, all these wide receiver 2s and 3s. And then if the kicker gets added, maybe he's 8,500, Kyrie Fairbairn's 9K. We can make this work easily. So I think on low-risk contests for FanDuel, this is the approach, playing 3 of Mixon, Hall, and Rodgers and fading CJ Stroud. All right. Now let's talk about the reason most of you are here. High-risk contests, leagues, satellites, GPPs. Got to beat a lot of people to win a lot of money. Let's talk about it. Let's get a water sip in first. Feeling a little under the weather last couple of days, so need even more water than usual. Stay hydrated. All right, now let's talk about some strategies here. No underperforming wide receivers for this slate, which may or may not be a good thing, as they seemingly have only been performing on the main slates, haven't been that great on showdown slates as well. But once they do hit, we'll be in for a treat. So let's keep that in mind as we get some underperformers in future showdown slates. You look at the expected fantasy points formula for running backs, whether it's ESPN, which is free, by the way, you can go check it out, PFF, our underlying formula at Occupy Fantasy. Breece Hall is underperforming his expected fantasy points. Joe Mixon is overperforming his expected fantasy points. So a very mid-level IQ take is you go heavier on Hall and lower on Mixon today. They'll both be extremely popular at captain, Mixon especially. We have Mixon as the most popular MVP on FanDuel, the most popular captain on DraftKings. So if you want some reasoning to fade Mixon, he's overperforming. However, when you have good players in good situations, sometimes they just overperform because they are that good and they continue to overperform. Right? If you put 2 guys in the same situation, one's better, naturally one's going to perform better. And that's what Mixon is doing right now. So I wouldn't necessarily fade him as a result of that. If you're looking for some reason to fade him, that could be it. But he is passing the eye test as well as any other advanced metric test. So Mixon's performance, while it's overperforming, is still pretty legit. Hall, though, is the one who is underperforming. We see these guys the past couple of weeks have huge multi-touchdown games at the running back position. So Hall would be the guy, just based on that I would choose if you're playing one lineup or you're choosing between those 2 guys at captain. The model really likes the New York Jet wide receivers, Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson. You look at their stats from last week. Devontae Adams playing every snap as he got traded, but 6 targets last week. Garrett Wilson had 8 targets last week, so Garrett Wilson's still getting his targets as well. The model is picking up on these. Normally, the model has a quarterback or running back at the top on both sites. It is Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams on DraftKings especially for this slate. So that is something to take note of. They will both be much lower owned than Mixon and Hall. Great pivots and especially smaller field GPPs, but large field GPPs as well. Let's go through the cheaper guys just to make sure we're not missing anything. So we talked about the top range. Remember, Tank Dell gets the bump. He is tight, wide receiver 1 now. Dalton Schultz will probably get an increase in targets as their tight end without Stephon Diggs and without Nico Collins. And we scroll down 5K or 6K or less, Tyler Conklin, 5,600. The kickers we've discussed already. Braylon Allen, he's down to 4,400 now. They're starting to get him more involved. If you remember, once they fired Salah, they gave Breece Hall like a crazy amount of work. And then last week that changed, and Allen got 12 carries, which was obviously more than he got in the last 3 weeks combined before that. So maybe he's a sneaker play if they split work with Breece Hall again tonight. He's only $4,400. Not many people are going to play him. We talked about the Houston receivers, Hutchinson 4K, Woods and Mechie 3K and 2,800 respectively. Mike Williams 3,600. Lots of options in this range. Ogumba Wale is sneaky as a pass catching back at 2K. Kate Stover, Xavier Gibson, Jeremy Ruckert, obviously a staple on Showdown slates. How many times have we talked about Jeremy Ruckert on this channel in the past 2 months? Too many. Anybody else? I think that's really it. Yeah. J.J. Taylor, again, super large field only as the backup running back. Probably only play him in 150 lineups and in lineups where Mixon is not in that lineup. Okay, that'll do it for this video. Appreciate you all watching, as always. The Daily Plug will be up here this afternoon with rankings, lineup strategies for specific contest types on DraftKings and FanDuel. Ownership is up in the model and the builder, rankings for DraftKings and FanDuel. Everything you need. We are so close to 10K subscribers. I mean, like 20 or 30 away. So this video can do it. Let's make it happen. If you're not subscribed, subscribe, and then we will kick off that 10K subscriber giveaway. So make sure you do that. Let that be your duty today. Like the video. Very easy, free way to support the channel. Helps more than you know. Any questions, comment on the video. I will happily get back to you before the slate starts tonight at 8:15 p.m. Eastern. So Brian for Occupy, thank you for listening, and good luck in tonight's Houston and Jets Showdown slate.